Hi, I'm Congressman Mike McIntyre, and welcome to Capitol Conversations. As your congressman from southeastern North Carolina, this program is part of our ongoing effort to keep you informed about what's going on up in Washington and how it affects all of us back home in North Carolina. Today, I'm really pleased to have my friend and colleague, Congressman Randy Forbes from Virginia, co-chairman of the Congressional Prayer Caucus. And we're excited to be with you today because this is something that Randy and I both have been involved in our work together as co-chairman of this caucus. Randy is the one who founded the caucus originally and inspired so many members here on Capitol Hill from both political parties to become involved. In fact, just recently we celebrated a milestone of having over 100 members of Congress from both parties come together to join in the Congressional Prayer Caucus. In fact, to be an officially recognized caucus on Capitol Hill, you have to have representatives from both parties. And we're pleased that this is a bipartisan, or in fact, we like to say a nonpartisan effort, because when we come together for prayer, we leave the political labels and agendas at the door. And I'm going to let Congressman Forbes, since he was the original founder of the Prayer Caucus, to tell us about this today as we begin this new year. I can tell you he also serves as chairman of the Readiness Subcommittee on Armed Services, and he also serves as a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Representative Forbes is a great man of integrity and of character. And I know that Randy personally our offices used to be right across the hall from each other, so we were also neighbors, and our staff worked together on many different issues. And he's well respected, I can tell you, here in Congress. In fact, in 2009, Randy was named as a Distinguished Christian Statesman by the Center for Christian Statesmanship for his integrity, for his faith, for the values that he exhibits in the work that he does here on Capitol Hill, as well as in his personal life. So, Randy, I want to thank you for coming to be with us today, and thank you for being a great role model here on Capitol Hill. Thank you for the great work that I know we share together as members of the Armed Services Committee and the passion we have for helping our men and women in uniform. And there's so much that we could talk just about that, because you and I share that passion together. And then, of course, both of us having practiced law and both having an interest in things that affect our legal system, which, of course, Congress is intricately involved in. Your work on the Judiciary Committee is well respected also. But today, our focus is on the Congressional Prayer Caucus. And if you would, just tell us what inspired you to start the Prayer Caucus and how you feel like it is fulfilling that purpose or doing something better, beyond, or different than that purpose in terms of a little bit of the history of the Prayer Caucus.
Well, Mike, first let me thank you for your friendship, and I'm glad you're doing this for your constituents, because, as you know, oftentimes people look at Congress and they think everybody up here is at each other's throats. They see kind of the bomb throwers on national
Right.
network news, and they don't understand that we have some people up here who, on a bipartisan basis, across the lines, are very, very close friends. And, you know, I often tell people if we could have all of Congress having the relationship that you and I have, we could work out a lot of problems.
Right.
I think one of the things that I'm proud of in serving with you is that you and I have a relationship that even if we disagreed on political issues, I would never find you on the floor cutting me off in debate, saying anything bad about me, and I would never do it to you. I thank you for your service to the Prayer Caucus. And the reason the Prayer Caucus was birthed is, Mike, as you know, we just have a rich history of faith in this country, and it has been a significant part of the backbone of America. I think it's helped us become the nation that we are. I also believe it's a guidepost for us as we go through the future of this country if we want to reach the destiny that we have as a nation. And all across the country, we see attempts to either have a revisionist history of that faith or actually have it pulled down from the walls. It hit me as we had one of our colleagues from a Midwestern state came and told me one day that their little girl in the first grade felt she couldn't even say the word God in school anymore. And so we formed the Congressional Prayer Caucus for a number of reasons. The primary one, though, was drawing a line in the sand and saying, look, this rich history of faith in this country, people's ability to pray, ought to be defended and ought to be protected. And the Prayer Caucus was designed to be that entity to help do that. The other thing, as you correctly mentioned earlier, is we do believe in the power of prayer, and you know, once a week we come together at the beginning of this session, Democrats and Republicans. Most people don't hear about that or see that, but we go into a room 219, and you and I have the privilege of leading that, and literally pray for the country, not just for us, but for needs across the country. and for really wisdom to help guide and shape this land, the same way that our founding fathers did when the country was created.
But I think, Randy, too, one of the neat things about it is that I know that you worked hard on, Randy mentioned Room 219, and I know that if you go to the Congressional Prayer Caucus website, that folks that are watching this who are concerned about what's happening in our country, and I'll say this, Randy, I know throughout the political landscape of this country, folks have real issues, real concerns, no matter what their party background is or their political philosophy. People share that concern about the future of our country. And so often I'll tell people after they've complained and complained and complained or shared concern after concern after concern, I'll say, would you take just 5 minutes a week to pray for us, that we do the right thing, that we do make the right decisions? And that's what I think has been great about the prayer caucus, is getting together on the first night each week that we're in session to spend a few moments in prayer right after the first vote begins. So there's no conflict on the Hill, and I think that was brilliant that you chose that time for us to meet, so that nobody can say, well, I have this committee meeting or task force meeting or hearing I've got to go to, or even meetings, any kind of meeting, because at that time we are all on the floor and we can simply step across the hall in room 219 to pray together as Solomon did for wisdom. So that has worked well. And if you'll tell some folks about what they can see on the website if they go in the tab about 219.
Well, they can literally go on and see some of the real cutting-edge issues, too, that are faced with faith. As you know, Mike, a lot of your constituents never get to see in the network media coverage oftentimes. When they opened the new visitor center, $621 million taxpayer money, as we walked in the visitor center, they had inscribed in stone that our national motto was E Pluribus Unum. And the prayer caucus, with your leadership and help in that, led an effort to make sure that was changed. They had refused to put "In God We Trust" actually in the new visitor center, wouldn't put the Pledge of Allegiance because it contained the word God, and wouldn't put the Declaration of Independence because the prayer caucus went into action. Today, inscribed in stone is "In God We Trust" in that visitor center. We also have the Pledge of Allegiance in stone, and the Declaration of Independence is displayed. Architect of the Capitol wouldn't allow us to put the word God on flag certificates that flew over the United States Capitol. Had a young boy from Michigan who was a scout, wanted to dedicate his flag that was flown over the Capitol to his grandfather with these words, "To my grandfather who taught me to love my God, my country, and my family." Architect of the Capitol said no. Because of the efforts of the Visitor Center today, that's back on. Flag folding ceremonies for our veterans, they refused to let them have those on a voluntary basis, Mike, because one of the 13 steps contained the word God. Because of the prayer caucus, that's back in and they can do that. And of course, you remember on the Washington Monument where they tried to take any reference to God off the walls, because the prayer caucus stood up and said, why are you doing this? That's back up on the walls. So I think your constituents can go on that website and see some of the attacks on religious liberty and how the prayer caucus has stood up for those. And as you mentioned, the great thing is we encourage people to pray for us. And one of the things that always amazes me, you and I have talked about this before, but we'll have people who will just fight over the fact that we don't have prayer in school anymore. And I look at them sometimes and agree with them. We should have prayer in school, but then I look at them and say, we don't have prayer in our homes anymore sometime. And, you know, can you just take 5 minutes to pray for your country? And I think if we can get people doing that, it'll make a big difference.
Well, in fact, tell us about that opportunity. So a church or a fellowship group or a family or even an individual can go and say, yes, I agree with you, Randy. I agree with you, Mike. I do want to pray with you. You better believe I want you guys to make the right decisions. And I'm sick and tired of all the political vibrations that come out of all these, talk shows and debates. I just want y'all to do something and do it right. And we share that frustration. I know you and I do, because we try to work across the aisle on different issues and concerns. But if folks will pray for us, we do want to make sure we move in the right direction. And I know the site that they can go to, if you'll tell them how they mechanically can go through that.
Well, there's two things that they can do. They can either go to the site, and I'm sure you'll be putting it up on this program at the end, but they can go to the official Prayer Caucus site, which they can readily go to and see all the issues you and I just talked about. But in addition to that, we have a Prayer Caucus, Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation. And as you know, we dot all of our I's and cross our T's so that you and I are doing what we can do ethically here. But the foundation is not associated with the caucus legally, but they are doing great work, Mike, in helping to create caucuses across the country. They've created a entity called Pray USA, where citizens across the country can go on and join in praying for the country. And as you know, we're having prayer caucuses formed now in state legislatures across the country doing calls to prayer. And you helped lead that call to prayer in North Carolina, which was
back in June.
so successful. We now have 20 more states that are online to join and become a part of that. And the exciting thing about that is that when we see these issues come up, it used to be that maybe 2 or 3 people would know about it because it wasn't covered in the news. Now within minutes, we can have legislators and policymakers across the country all looking at it and saying, how do we stand up and make sure we're defending this rich history of faith in America?
Well, I know when we were together in Raleigh, in our state capital back in June, we had the opportunity to kick off State Legislative Prayer Caucus. And we had leaders of both parties there, and we had members of the Council of State. We had folks from the state Supreme Court, and even some from the State Court of Appeals. And then we also had legislators who came from across North Carolina. And we were not in session on that day, which made it even more impressive. They did not have to be in Raleigh for that event in June. Also, I know I had the privilege to go down to your state capital in Richmond from Washington back in early April. And what a great event that was. Your governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general were all there. We're all speakers that day. A great turnout of folks from both political parties. So once again, this was not a political event or rally, but rather it was a rally for Virginia in your case, a rally for North Carolina, and indeed up here in Washington, it's a rally for America. That we call ourselves to prayer and truly live up to those ideals that we want to make sure that as a nation that we are praying and asking God for guidance, as our national motto says.
You're right, and I wish that I had all the wisdom in the world. I wished I had all the answers, but neither you nor I do. And so we really appreciate when people pray and ask God to give us that wisdom that we need. The other thing, and I just can't emphasize this enough, in fact, just as I was walking down here to do this program with you, I had someone grab me in the hall and say, thank you, every time I see you, you're so civil and you act in a civil manner. And I just think, you know, what they see on television often is so different than the relationship that you and I have. And I can't think of any 2 members of Congress where, as you mentioned, you went down to Virginia and not only represented the prayer caucus, but represented me because I couldn't be there. I had a committee meeting and kept me from going, but I completely trusted you to do that, you know. And then you invited me down to North Carolina to be there with you. And I think one of the things that we need as a country, I cannot think of another entity, another organization that helps people to come across party lines better than the prayer caucus is able to do. Because it's very, very difficult for people to pray together and then go in there and attack each other on the House floor. And right now, people across this country are looking for answers. They're looking for solutions. They know you don't have them all, I don't have them all, but they're confident if we can find a way to work together that we can get those for the country.
Well, absolutely. Those are excellent points. And I want to mention, too, for the sake of our viewers, so there's no confusion or, in fact, broader understanding, that we not only have the Congressional Prayer Caucus that meets on either Monday night or Tuesday night, which is usually the first night that we're in session, but we also have prayer breakfasts that meet up here on Capitol Hill. I know the House prayer breakfast meets on Thursday mornings. The Senate prayer breakfast typically meets on Wednesday mornings. And our viewers may hear about that from time to time, and that's another opportunity where members can come together and share their personal testimony, their first personal faith journey, how prayer and faith has impacted their lives, and we get to know other members on a more personal level.